Hello and welcome back to Bricking It. Today we're going to be taking a look at our Defence Against the Dark Arts classroom and office, and also our corridor section. So we're going to start off with 3 of our Hogwarts Moments volumes. Now these don't actually feature any scenes themselves, but they do contain a lot of pieces that we use in our Defence Against the Dark Arts classroom. So let's have a quick look through these first. So in this volume we have 3 of our Defence Against the Dark Arts teachers and all of the various paraphernalia and items that go in their offices. So we have Lockhart and of course Umbridge and Professor Quirrell. And these are all the teachers that you might think of as baddies, I suppose. These are non-members of the Order of the Phoenix. And in the sister volume, with a feather on it, we have the teachers that were members of the Order of the Phoenix, and or at least were doppelgangers of members of the Order of the Phoenix. So we have Mad-Eye Moody, Professor Lupin. We also have all the paraphernalia for their various classrooms. We share a lot of common pieces. We have the Boggart Snape and the Dementor, Boggart Dementor, which we'll have a closer look at when we set the scenes. And our third volume, in a different colour, sand green, which is going to be the colour of all the volumes that contain paraphernalia for our rooms and hallways. And here you can see we have fluffy heads and bodies, which we'll look up a bit later, and some other corridor pieces. So let's start now by looking at our building module. So here's the first of our modules, and it's our DADA classroom. Simple, fairly standard build, just a box. Now this doesn't display the outside, it points towards the wall. So again, it's just a bit of whatever I had available. This side of the module actually connects to the Dark Arts teacher's office. You see we have the top of a small flight of stairs. Let's just come here round the corner, and a little banister. So in the movie, obviously this is a nice curved banister and it's a much higher pulpit kind of arrangement. We just wanted to suggest that with this small flight of stairs. This selections of potions on the shelf came from various other sets and modules. I think there might be some bits from the hospital wing and potions class among others. It was just to fill up that bit of blank space that we had, along with our huge spider, which features in the interior, or the features of the build when we do our 4th year set. And other than that, it's just a very standard plain simple box. The other module that accompanies it is split into 2 halves, and again very plain and simple. A few strategically placed jumper plates on the floor, which you'll see why shortly, but otherwise it's just 2 very small modules. Here, this being the office module, is the archway that connects and leads through to our classroom. Let's see if we can get an angle that we can see. So obviously the whole shapes don't match up, and I may well change that to an archway piece on this side as well, just to get continuity, but it works. They're all aligned. We've got a small step up on the office side just here that leads us up to the landing and of course onto the balcony. So they're pretty boring structures, and as this is an interiors display kind of mock, my Hogwarts castle is all about displaying the interiors. As you may know, it started with the Hogwarts Moment sets. It's really about what the interiors show us that this build is all about. And Defence Against the Dark Arts is the module that tells the story of, Harry Potter's time at Hogwarts. It's different every year, so just by having different interiors you can really tell which year we're representing in the mock. So a couple of bits of furniture already in there. We've got this tiny table that was just left over from the DADA Moments set, I believe. And the other main bit of furniture is this blackboard. Now this is adapted from the one in the Defense Against the Dark Arts Hogwarts Moments. It's basically turned, it's upside down, a few of the pieces rearranged, but largely it's all still there. We've got the sticker piece is actually on the blackboard there. That's only really appropriate during Moody's year. So in other years we can just display the blackboard as plain. But also this piece of furniture doubles up as our wardrobe for our boggarts when we are doing a third year scene. So this sits here on these plates at the back, just there, either as a wardrobe or more frequently as a blackboard. So that's the main generic furniture setup for the module. Of course we need a desk in there, so we've got a desk that lives here and with a couple of seats for our students to sit at. We have a Ravenclaw and Neville in class today. See, we've got a little one of these angled superhero flying bases. That's just to add a little bit of detail. It doesn't need to live there. I don't want to lose it, so it tends to stay in there. It's fairly unobtrusive. Now obviously Defense Against the Dark Arts, one of its most prominent features of decoration is the large dragon skeleton hanging from the ceiling. Really haven't got space to do that, and all of the even small scale builds to represent it would really dwarf the space and be pretty overwhelming in the available area. So we'll just forego that for the detail that's provided by the rest of our stuff. So let's start off with year 1 in Defense Against the Dark Arts. So it's of course a feature of the story, and quite a prominent part of the story of the first book, that the 3rd floor corridor on the left hand side is strictly out of bounds to anyone who doesn't want to suffer a horrible and painful death. And as we see later, when Professor McGonagall goes and looks for Professor Quirrell in his classroom, or to look for Wood in Professor Quirrell's classroom, we find that it's a completely different classroom. It's low down in the castle. I believe it's on the ground floor. It's a completely different room. So our teaching room for Defense Against the Dark Arts is different in year 1, and we will cover that when we get to that module. And as a result, this corridor, or this classroom, is disused and off limits. So we've got a chance for nature to reclaim the space. So just put a bunch of cobwebs around the place, just to show that it's a completely disused area. Let's put our wall back together. So in year 1, our 1st floor classroom is not in use. Now, as we know, it's the corridor on the left hand side that's out of bounds, and to represent the left hand side corridor we use our Defense Against the Dark Arts office, and that is famously the location of Fluffy. So we don't have space for a full Fluffy build, obviously, so I've created this little piece here. Now it's all brick built. Use a lot of these ragged rock or fir pieces in reddish brown. We've got 1, 2, 3 ball joints here, and that's where our fluffy heads will attach. So let's pop those on. So the bottom one, oh, come on Fluffy, I was not playing with that. In fact, I think, if memory serves, it's been a while since I've set up a year 1 display. We need to install our doorway first before we put Fluffy's heads on. So we've just got a few jumpers at the back there, in a row you can just see there, and they take the module. A doorway attaches there. We can attach Fluffy's heads if they will let me without constantly wiggling about. Well, that process was longer and more arduous than any human should reasonably expect it to be. But we finally have our 3 heads on. We're going to have a door pushed up against them there. One head clear and gnashing, and the other 2 pushed up against the door. Of course, we could display a minifigure in there just pushing on the door to keep them locked away. But that's how our fluffy displays. And on the other side, in the corridor that's still in use, I tend to display at least one minifigure. Wondering what all the noise is about. So, for our first year display, we have our disused dark arts classroom, Fluffy behind his doorway, and the remaining corridor on the first floor. This could also be in the first year, currently where we display this blank arch. Now this is going to hold the new sticker piece from Dumbledore's office with the griffin shaped gargoyle, and that will just sit in there just for a bit more visual interest. That will probably be displayed there in most years. I don't remember what floor exactly that entrance is on. I'm sure somebody will be able to tell me in the comments. I believe it's on the 2nd or 3rd floor, I think. I can't remember exactly, and I'm not sure it's exactly ever said where it is, but people seem to have solved these issues. So that can live in there for now, and that is our first year display. So let's move on to year 2. So for the second year, of course, we have Gilderoy Lockhart as our defence against the dark arts teacher. And as the classroom's in use, we are going to need the stools back down off the desks, ready to receive our students. So Gilderoy Lockhart has a selection of accessories to add to his year. This chair. Oh, pulled the whole thing apart. This is going swimmingly. Okay, we have all our parts and pieces for Lockhart's office. So we're going to start with these portrait pieces. Let's take our signed photograph off the bottom there. That's just where it lives while it's packed away. I'm going to pop our portraits on the wall just there. Grab an office chair and desk with a fancy old quill where I can be signing his photographs. So that's the office, fairly simple, nice and easy. In the classroom, we're going to add a large portrait of the man himself. Now really that should be over at this side near the steps, and possibly with a bit of rearranging I could pop it in there, but it just spreads the interest around, because over on this side we're going to have a loose pixie just up there, and of course at the front of the class teaching the lesson is the man himself. So there we go. Year 2 module, nice and easy. Large portrait in Lockhart, Pixie, and his office is all set up with all the photographs of himself. Alright, next year, year 3. So in year 3, of course, this is often used as a regular classroom, desks and standard teacher at the front. But one of the most famous lessons that's featured in the films, of course, is the Boggart in the Wardrobe. Now in the books this takes place in the staff room, and I was very close to having a staff room module where we could set this scene, but for the sake of one scene in one book I moved it to the movie location in the classroom. So for this year we move our desk to the side where we've cleared a bit of space. Our blackboard becomes a wardrobe. Then we need to add our characters for year 3. So our teacher in third year, of course, is Professor Lupin. So here we have Lupin. Of course, we need our Boggart Snape. Running repairs as ever. We need our gramophone and our tea chest. Now these furniture pieces here are all set up to be made by Moody's. But on the reverse side, we've got our interesting magical creatures to make them useful for Lupin. So let's set up our classroom space for our year 3 scene. We have Professor Lupin, a couple of students with Neville in the front, all queuing up to face off against our Boggart. We've got our gramophone. It's a fairly simple build, 2x2 and a 1x2, 1x3 plate on top. One of these small aerial pieces to serve as the needle of the record. Record itself, don't know what set this is from. I found it on Bricklinks and knew it would be perfect for the job. And then just this little arrangement to be amplifier, funnel. Uses again one of these little angled superhero pieces but in light bluish grey. And then we have, can't focus, just little cone and a dish piece to represent our gramophone. This is going to pop in just here, in this space there, and then our Boggart Snape goes in facing the students. And that's our classroom scene for year 3. Now I got my Boggart Snape, found it with a seller on eBay, and I'm fairly sure that I've been sold a bootleg. Doesn't quite look right, it's a little bit too shiny. The materials don't just feel quite there. So I'm not entirely sure this is 100% a Lego minifig. Don't often see mould seams on minifig arms quite that prominent. Really does show up in the light. But I've got it, it does the job. Should have been known by the price that it wasn't what I was getting. Now the fur collar and the bird on the hat I added myself. These are fairly common, well-known adaptations to a legit version of this figure to make the Boggart Snape look just finished off nicely. And even though it's a bootleg and it somewhat tugs at my conscience, it does fill the scene very nicely. So that's our classroom. Let's have a look at our office. So we have our selection of items at the back there. And because that partially obscures the window, we've just got a little wall piece that just fills in there. There we go. The corridor, of course, is empty, so we can use our doorway in there. Now, one thing I forgot to show for year 2 is that instead of our Dumbledore's office door, we can replace our wall with this one, featuring the famous graffiti from year 2. And when I eventually get my Dumbledore's office, which I'm holding off on buying for ages now, because of the rumour of the grand staircase gift with purchase at the end of July, even though there's no particular evidence that it's actually real or that it's going to be available in the UK even, I'm still holding out hope. But we will see. Hopefully I'll soon have Dumbledore's office, which will get me a nice Mrs. Norris to add to this scene. But of course that's year 2 and this is year 3. So we will generally have the Gryffindor door there. I was going to have a humpback witch statue in there, but I can't find a satisfying minifig or way of creating a humpback witch to go in that area. That was just another little scene location from that year 3 storyline. But anyway, there we go. Oh, one more item, of course, for the office is the tea chest. And inside the tea chest we will find another boggart, this time masquerading as a Dementor for when Lupin and Harry are training in his office. So we have one of our older type of Dementors. Let's see if I can get the lighting right on that. Right, lighting or focus, one or the other apparently. There we go. So that's our third year classroom and office. And on to fourth year. So here's our fourth year classroom. You can see our wardrobe has turned back into a blackboard. We've turned around the blackboard piece to display the Moody sticker. There's the Mad himself, torturing a spider. Neville yet again in the classroom. Turns out Neville's quite a versatile character to have permanently living in my DADA classroom. Gets strung up by the pixies in year 2. In year 3 he faces the boggart. Year 4 he suffers terrible PTSD flashbacks as a result of the use of the Cruciatus curse. He gets around a bit, fairly handy. There's Moody himself at the front of the classroom. So fairly standard, nice and easy. Indeed the office, again very similar. This piece here is just the reverse sticker set from the Lupin piece. So everything stays the same, and we add in his chest, his various dark detectors, faux glasses, things like that. Again, third floor corridor, nothing special for this year. So again, we'll have our Griffin doorway to Dumbledore's office on display, as it's quite a nice sticker piece and fills the space quite nicely. Let's look at year 5. Year 5 probably offers us the most well-known interior for any Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, being that it's so different from all that have gone before it. And that's Professor Umbridge's pink decorated office. Now we still need some work doing on our Professor Umbridge setup, our year 5, because of course these plain pink tiles and lavender tiles just are not cutting it. So we're waiting until the secondary market opens up for our new Ministry of Magic set that came out. And of course in there we've got an Umbridge's office that gives us a couple of cat plate tiles and a lovely cat portrait. So for now we're just waiting and holding our breath. I'm going to keep the same chair because it's largely hidden by this pink desk here. Now our side build for this one I'm still working on, because of course we want to feature Umbridge's fireplace. And I just need to come up with a tiny little, very slim build that will just fit on literally one stud's depth, but will also still be able to store in our books. It's on my to-do list and I will be coming back to it. So that's Umbridge's office with the lady herself. Here we go. And we're going to pop her up on the steps there, overlooking the classroom. Strikes me as the kind of teacher that would want to put herself above her students. But other than that, our classroom doesn't change a great deal. In fact, it remains largely unchanged from previous years. And so there is our year 5 build. Again, the corridor is going to have Dumbledore's office entrance. I do have a little swamp that I often display in this corridor. Let's show that to you now. So there's our little swamp. You can just sit in the hallway there, just to represent the lovely swamp that Fred and George left as a parting gift for Professor Umbridge to sort out during that 5th year of Harry, Ron and Hermione's. And so I suppose that could be considered our full display for year 5. Although I'm going backwards and forwards on the swamp, I'm not sure if I'll keep it. It is stored in one of our moment style books, just like these ones. And it shares the space with the foliage I use for Forenzo's classroom, which is part of a display in 6th year definitely. I believe the 5th year as well. But again, that's one where I need to hit the books and do a bit of more research and see if he had that classroom in the 5th year. But the module that Forenso's classroom shares space with is one of our ground floor modules that I really like in its main form, which is the grand staircase, and I'd much rather be seeing the staircase build than the Forenso's classroom build, so I may just scrap the idea and leave this out entirely. Okay, that's year 5. Moving on to year 6. And here we are, year 6 display. Again, nothing particularly special about year 6. Of course, this is when Snape finally gets the job he's been after for all those years. And he does make some changes in the classroom. Now in the book it describes that the windows are covered with dark hangings and that there are pictures of people in torturous agony all up over the walls. Now the chance of finding a Lego sticker with a picture of someone in agony is slim to none, I would have thought. So we've just got a grey tile hanging up on the wall. I need to get a much longer one to actually cover the window, probably a 2x6, but at the moment I'm using just a 2x4 up in that spot there in front of the window, just to make it look a bit more gloomy. Pop Professor Snape in. There he is, looking just as happy to be there as everyone else is, I imagine. And his office is a fairly simple arrangement, just the desk we've used in previous years, the same chair. At the back I've just split this pillar, which was a face filler, or a space filler even, in the year 3 and 4 offices. I've just split that into 2 low pillars or cabinets, and I might look into getting some little sticker elements for that to make them look like bookcases, just for a little bit more visual interest. And of course, if I ever come up with a fireplace for Umbridge's year, that can also sit there during Snape's time, just to make it a bit more interesting. But I always think Snape's office is going to be pretty bare bones. I should imagine most of his stuff stayed downstairs in the potions area. This is just somewhere he comes while he's in the classroom. So not really much of an area that he's made home for himself. So pretty stark. And again, we'll keep our Griffin statue at the end of the corridor. So that's year 6. Now here's where I would say on to year 7, but we really don't get a description of the classroom much in the books, because of course that year the Carrows are in charge. I do have some Death Eaters, so I do have a model I could use for Carrow, but as I really don't run a year 7 setup in the castle at the moment, I haven't really explored the options for that. I think if I ever do a year 7, it will be during the Battle of Hogwarts, so most of the rooms and areas will be filled with rubble and battling wizards running around the place, so we don't need to worry too much about how it looks as a classroom for any kind of year 7 scene. So there we go. Those are our years 1 to 6 setups for the Defence Against the Dark Arts classroom, office and 3rd floor corridor. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave us a like, please share the video, and if you'd like to see more Hogwarts modular mocks, then please subscribe to Brickin' It. Thanks for watching. Bye.